Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Hey, America. I know you're out there listening.
Yep. Hi,
been a
everybody.
while. I just want you to know that I haven't forgotten about you.
Listen, my name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Inherent Vice. The best kind of vice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Built-in vice.
Yeah.
If it's a quiet night out at the beach and your ex-old lady suddenly out of nowhere shows up with a story about her current billionaire land developer boyfriend and his wife and her boyfriend and a plot to kidnap the billionaire and throw him in a loony bin,
I need your help, Doc.
maybe you should just look the other way.
It's the vice you made along the way.
Yeah, it's the sunglasses and pastel shirts you bring with you.
Before we get started, big old thank you to Ombre.
Thank you.
Ombre. That's our Patreon producer who's been very patient about this episode.
Yeah.
Who commissioned it. We're getting back into stuff, slowly, gradually. And so thank you,
feel
Ombre.
like this one in particular we've rescheduled like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, we have. But we're there. We did it.
We
did
here.
it.
We're finally here.
Well, yeah, recording this. We're finally here. I had never seen this movie. It had always been on my list.
Same.
When you say I'll put it on the list, it's...
Yeah, this is one I had wanted to watch for a while, so I'm glad that I had an excuse / was being forced to watch it.
Yeah. So thank you, Ombre. This is Paul Thomas Anderson, who, we all love. He's made a lot of things. Doing an adaptation of a novel.
By Thomas
trailers,
Pynchon.
Thomas Pynchon.
Famous recluse, Thomas Pynchon.
Oh, okay.
Although he's been on The Simpsons more than once.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
I think he's been on at least once. He's apparently a huge Simpson fan. Anyway.
Who was he on The Simpsons?
He played himself on an episode.
Yeah, he's credited for 2 episodes.
2? Okay, I thought it was 2.
Yeah. The book itself is apparently very confusing, or his writing style is confusing. This is a movie that I watched the trailer for it. Yeah. I watched the trailer for it. It really presents like Big Lebowski. It's like Paul Thomas Anderson's Big Lebowski. It got a lot of walkouts. It got high critic reviews, low audience reviews.
Walkouts.
Yeah. There's even articles about people not liking this film.
It is kind of long. So yeah, I could see
2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's a bit long.
For what it is, that was like my biggest.
Yeah, that is sort of the biggest issue, is that it's so meandering. I guess we should start off. How did you like this?
I liked it more than I thought when the movie ended. Meaning that during the movie, I wasn't sure how I felt about it, and I liked it scene by scene.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the conclusion. I don't know how much I like the sum of its parts. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, how about you?
I kind of feel the same way. I really liked the writing. I liked the individual scenes. I did think it was funny.
Me too. Josh Brolin is amazing.
He is pretty great in this movie.
He never gets to do shit like this. He always plays straight man. And so watching him play like this weird fucking character,
it's like Leslie Nielsen. It's straight. It's doing the straight man thing, but making him a maniac.
Yeah, he should. It makes you realize, like, oh yeah, he could do Naked Gun. It's so good. Like the scene where he's telling him that his girlfriend's gone, and he's like, she's gone, man.
He just won't clarify.
Yeah, he just won't clarify. She's gone groovy on us. And it's like, what the fuck are you saying, man? There's a lot of amazing Josh Brolin in this. It is.
Yeah.
So yeah, individual scenes and performances I thought were great.
Yeah. What I was going to say at the beginning is it's so scattered in the way that a lot of noirs are. And that, it's the detective starts pulling on one small thread that just seems, like a completely unrelated thing. And then it unravels this whole huge other conspiracy that you never would have expected. And all that's here. It's just so, it's so scattered that it was hard to follow, which
Yes.
I couldn't tell how much of that was just me being a dummy, because I have that problem a lot with noirs.
I think it was on purpose.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it was.
Yeah. There's a good example, because I literally started reading the synopsis after for the same
So
reason.
did I. I had to go read the Wikipedia, and then I also read the synopsis of the novel.
Yeah. Because it's purposefully, I think the idea is to sort of be from the perspective of this guy who is just on drugs all the fucking time.
Right.
So there's this feeling of dream logic. In fact, when you read the synopsis, it feels like dream logic.
Yeah, and losing time.
Yeah. It'll say stuff like he goes to visit this place that's also a massage place that also is, it's like this weird, he goes to this weird dentist building and hangs out with Martin Short, and then they start partying.
And Martin Short is incredible in this movie.
He's incredible.
And
it's like, wait, why are they there again? What was the point? And it's also told like a joke, and where it's like, and then he runs into this daughter of a client. Oh, by the way, he had this client. It's that where they introduce characters or threads way too late, for them to you feel like you're supposed to know who characters are.
Yeah.
At certain points, and you're like, wait.
Yeah, I did. I kept thinking about Big Lebowski, because Big Lebowski was kind of like that the first time I watched it too. I also kept thinking about Under the Silver Lake.
Yes, me too. And I think a lot of audiences watched this and went, Big Lebowski did it, right? But as we talked about, The Long Goodbye did it before that, right? Mm-hmm. Noir comedy has always been a thing.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. And so they're all taking from the same place.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that this felt like the style was very Lebowski. And what I mean by that is it had a lot of the sex and drugs, obviously the stoner. It had the serious crew cut guy who's a maniac. It had the non sequiturs. It had a lot of the musical cues and stuff.
Yeah.
So it really did feel like Big Lebowski in style too, which I think I could see it invoking that for a lot of people. But it does belong in a bigger genre.
Yeah, because it's not so much in tone as Big Lebowski, because Big Lebowski is way sillier.
Yes. But it does have, I think, the comedy noir genre, I think, can be perfectly summed up by one moment in The Big Lebowski,
mm-hmm.
which is when he sees Jackie Treehorn write something down on a piece of paper, leave the room, and then he does the pencil trick to see that he just drew a dick.
He just drew a dick while he was on the phone.
It's the perfect microcosm of the comedy noir, which is oh, you think you're doing something, but nope, it's just a maniac, incidental maniac or something.
Yeah. Speaking of Lebowski, as it relates to this movie, similar to Lebowski, how it's like a noir where nothing happens. He winds up kind of right where he started.
Yeah.
Having just gone through this whole big mystery, just sort of passively as an observer, really.
Right. There is a little justice at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one is kind of doing a similar thing, but there's so many red herrings and other threads that it just I felt myself more lost than usual.
Yes, I would argue Big Lebowski is not hard. I would say I could imagine the first time I watched it, I was a little lost but it's pretty straight line, meaning that we know the goal.
I remember, I'm so familiar with it now because I've seen it a lot, but I do remember watching it for the first time. Of course, I was in like middle school, but I do remember watching it for the first time and being sort of hard to keep track of some stuff.
I was also probably high. And like this type of movie is also a movie to watch high, you know, like the type of movie where you're like, man, how long is this fucking movie? Have I been sitting here for days and nothing makes sense and you're trying to follow it, you know?
Yeah, and it doesn't really feel like anything's happened. Like nothing really seems to have moved forward.
But the stuff that kind of, I guess, bothered me in this movie where I'm like, I don't know if this is, because Paul Thomas Anderson, obviously he's an amazing filmmaker. So I have to assume they're doing this stuff on purpose, but it felt like they were purposefully making it hard in a frustrating way. And what I mean is like one of the first moments is he's talking about, so the plot is that his girlfriend shows up and she's like, I'm part of this weird, like, what is it? Scam. This guy named this real estate guy.
It's Eric
Mickey
Roberts.
Wolfman. Eric Roberts. Yeah. Me and my new lover are trying to like put this guy into an institution and take his money. And everybody knows who he is. Like,
no, wait,
like our main character.
I thought it was she's Eric Roberts' lover, and Eric Roberts' wife is divorcing him, and the wife and her lover have reached out to her to try to help them get Eric Roberts committed.
You're right. Yeah.
So they can take all of his money.
You're right. And
they're like, we'll split some of it with you.
Yeah. And she says she's being followed. She seems really nervous. She leaves and she vanishes. And so, but there's this moment where he's like, oh, Wolfman. We all know Wolfman. And he looks at the TV and there's a Wolfman ad, but it's Josh Brolin, a different character by the name of Bigfoot, as Wolfman in the ad. I read in the synopsis that this is supposed to be a hallucination. And I'm like, why is he hallucinating? He's just stoned. But they also introduced the idea that Josh Brolin is also an actor.
Right.
And later he sees him on TV as an actor.
Yeah, and like an episode of FBI. Yeah, I did not take that scene as a hallucination. I just thought that because he says, oh, that like you said, he's like, everybody knows Wolfman. That's the guy that Bigfoot does the commercials for. So I just thought like that was like an acting gig that he had.
Right. But hallucination or not, because maybe the synopsis is wrong. Maybe people are like, I'm so confused.
Maybe they've misunderstood. Yeah.
Whether or not, you would normally have Eric Roberts in that fucking ad to show who the character is. That's when you introduce a character and then you see him on TV, right? And go like, oh, there he is. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it's so narratively weird where like if you miss the line like, oh, that's what Bigfoot, and it's like you're not sure who Bigfoot is yet. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like that's the sort of narrative confusion where there's these little moments where you're like, my brain is naturally assuming I'm going to see Wolfman on the ad because they just introduced him. Yeah. Like that's just sort of where your brain goes. But you're seeing this other character, and then we move to this other character. Josh Brolin, by the way, I don't really know what he wanted in the movie.
They introduced it at the very end that he wants vengeance for his murdered partner.
But he plants the drugs. Like, how does he get vengeance?
He plants the drugs on Joaquin.
Yeah. So he doesn't. That's what I thought, because he has that moment where he gets vengeance. He's like, I'm stealing their drugs.
By putting Joaquin in a situation where he kills the two guys that killed his partner.
Right, yeah. Which is a real Joker-ass plan.
Yeah.
Because it's like, he's like, I always knew you'd do it. And it's like, well, you did? Joaquin?
I guess he was right outside, so I guess if it didn't work, he could always just shoot whoever was left and be like, right. I was responding as a cop. You know, Anyway, I think he dumps the heroin on him just to get rid of him, so he can't tell on him.
Right, he's throwing him under the bus, I guess. But it's always so weird because it's like they're friendly, but they're not. And then it's almost like this playful rivalry. And then at the end, he just shows back up and eats all his weed.
Yeah.
I guess he's supposed to be unhinged as part of it, so it's like you don't...
Yeah,
again, he's like the Joker.
I assumed he was also on shitloads of drugs in that scene. already when he walks
Yeah.
in. But yeah, you're right. They keep like that's a common thing of noir, is to keep things narratively confusing and then things slowly start to gel.
Yeah.
But like this one kept introducing ideas without any of them connecting for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
and they connect and
real
they
long
don't.
time before we see Eric Roberts. So
Yes.
there's a long, long time before we get to connect a face to that name, for instance.
And the thing is, he's not really like this mysterious character throughout it all. You know, it's not Kill Bill. You know what I mean? Where you're like, there he is.
Yeah.
And so you almost kind of forget. And then stuff like Omar.
Yeah, he's in one scene.
He's in one scene and he seems to connect it, and then it never really goes anywhere.
Not
with
really.
that.
He just connects them to one of the bodyguards who ends up getting murdered.
Yeah, off screen, right? The bodyguard that he.
Yeah, that's the one that he wakes up next to that's been murdered, and all the cops.
There's a
are
lot
around
of
him.
weaving threads like that where
Yeah.
everything is related but not, or like, and so it's
Or like
it
real,
is
real
like,
tangentially related. Like
Yeah.
it just so happens that Omar from The Wire wanted him to find this Aryan Brotherhood dude that owed him money, who also happens to be one of Mickey's bodyguards.
right, and it's a classic noir idea, right? We've
Yeah.
seen this before where two clients come in and they're connected. But doesn't he also have that woman looking for Owen Wilson?
Yes.
Like she's another client, and then the daughter is another client. At a certain point, I thought he's got to be a central part of this. Like he is a patsy for something larger. You know what I mean? Because it was like so many clients were linking back to him and his girlfriend.
They still
and
kind
it's
of
all
connect.
just. It's all mainly a coincidence, though, in terms of them all coming to him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They don't, and that's true sometimes in noir where it's multiple clients whose cases are connected, but they don't know that they're connected, like the clients
Right.
themselves. But it does feel like it's just purely coincidence.
It's
for a lot of these.
piled on, and like after a while, like there's obviously again classic noir things, coincidences. They do land stuff briefly, but that doesn't play out, I don't think.
Oh yeah, the land stuff.
That's the stuff with Omar, which is like
Yeah.
my gang got kicked out.
Yes, yeah.
There's a lot of like high society cult, like you know, like it's hitting all the beats. It felt like,
Yeah.
like going to his house and meeting the wife and like,
Yeah. The cult's very Scientology, I think. Is that the idea?
I think
Or
so.
they've convinced Eric Roberts to give all of his money away.
Right, and the Golden Fang is like, so the Golden Fang is a boat, but also an organization
Mhm.
that is also the Martin Short dentist office,
Something
because it says
like that.
Golden. This is the stuff where you're like, all right. He learns about the lady. So well, let's just follow the thread. So he goes to Omar, tells him that
About
these
the-
real estate's place.
Yeah.
And he goes to the real estate place, which is also a brothel, like an open brothel.
Yeah.
It's just literally like
It has a
let
sign
me
that says, yeah.
yeah, the pussy eating special. And the woman who works at the brothel for no apparent reason starts helping him out. Oh, because she feels bad because she set him up, I guess.
Yeah, she set him up to get set up, basically. That this is where
Right.
he gets jugged
So does
and then wakes up next to the dead guy.
okay, so does that mean Omar was sent to him to set him up?
I'm not sure.
Because he shows up at this brothel out of the blue otherwise, and they're waiting for him. So they must have set him up somehow. He gets knocked out, framed for this murder. But that doesn't go anywhere, and I'm
No,
not
it's very
quite sure-
briefly. He's only very briefly framed for this murder.
right?
which,
and I'm not quite
which
sure
is
who set
common
that
for
up.
noir, right?
Yes,
Like it happens in the very beginning, usually, where they'll get detained briefly, and that's where we'll meet
yeah.
like
Another
the cop characters that they have, a rivalry with, etc.
it's a classic noir.
Yeah.
Cops are dead end. They're terrible.
Yeah.
They're bullies.
They're obstacles.
They're obstacles, yeah, which checks out. So, like, I don't know.
Josh Brolin definitely is.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, who set them up. Bambi didn't seem like, I guess she was in on it because she feels bad. She tells him, beware of the Golden Fang, as if it's a gang. Then he is asked to hunt for Owen Wilson, who is a jazz singer or jazz musician.
Yeah, a saxophone
who was
player.
Ex-heroin addict who is, I don't know how he's connected right away. He is now doing, like, we learn that he's a government stooge.
Yeah, he's a police snitch and they faked his death.
Right.
So he's in witness protection, but he wants to come home to his family.
Right. But he runs into him and he asks him what the Golden Fang is. And he says, oh, it's a ship. So they go find the ship and no one knows what the ship is. And that somehow brings them to the fucking dentist office.
In that weird tower.
In that, the magician's
the Fang
hat
tower. It's a Fang tower.
Yeah, it's a Fang. And so, like, this is one of those ideas that's supposed to be a dead end. I think Reese Witherspoon might have tipped him off.
Oh, right. Yeah. She's the lawyer
DA.
that he's kind of having a sort of relationship with.
Right. And then the lady also explains it. Oh, and his attorney.
Oh, Benicio del Toro, right.
Benicio del Toro.
Man, there's too much. There's too much in this movie.
There's way too much.
I need to watch it again.
I know, it's one of those for sure.
Yeah.
So he goes to the building, runs into Martin Short, who seems to be like a head honcho, where I wrote down like, ooh, if Martin Short plays the head of a drug ring, that's great. What a great idea. But he is just openly doing drugs and fucking his assistant and is just like, let's all do drugs. And it becomes a sudden like, I loved this, but it became just a sudden like, dude, where's my car? Let's go party with Martin Short and him. So it's like a dead end where you realize this guy is just a maniac. There's a lot of incidental maniacs. There's a lot of oddly horny people too. Like aggressively horny people. I guess, okay, well, I guess that's where the name comes in, right? Inherent vice. Inherent vice, as they explain, stands for something that insurance accepts as a natural problem.
Yeah, like an inevitable thing that's going to happen.
Inevitable flaw with something.
Yeah, like they explain it like eggs getting broken in the cargo hold of a ship. That's just going to happen
truck
during travel.
Running into pedestrians.
Right, yes.
Yeah. It just can't be helped. And
catching on fire and trapping you inside.
Exactly. And so I think the idea is we're seeing everybody's inherent vice, right? Is the idea is people are so horny that they can't help themselves. People are so addicted that they can't help themselves. And we're seeing all these characters sort of succumb to this stuff constantly, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's, yeah.
Because like the DA, Reese Witherspoon, for example, shouldn't be involved with Joaquin Phoenix.
No.
But it has like clearly a little dirty little hippie fetish and she loves it, you know, like, and Martin Short is like,
he's just he's Steve Martin's character from Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes. And then they're pulled over by a cop and they're just like, oh fuck. And it's just such a funny idea because you think he sneaks into this building and I kept thinking the power dynamic is like Martin Short's going to be like a scary guy or like a guy in charge.
Yeah.
And then he's just like another drug weirdo freaking out over the cop. But I still don't quite know, like, again, each scene, it's almost like there's sketches and they're supposed to be funny and absurd. But I'm sitting here being like, okay, well, what the fuck was that? What was that building? What was Martin Short doing? Was it just a dentist office called Golden Fang that coincidentally? No, because he gets killed later by the attorney representing the Golden Fang.
Yeah,
so
I think there was a connection between the dentists and the cult.
Right, because there's implied later that he says that the Golden Fang, like, they're a top-down organization. They don't just give you heroin, but they also clean you up. They do everything, right?
Right.
And so like they give you the false teeth if your teeth are rotted out from heroin, is I think the implication.
Right. Yeah,
there.
that's right. The dentists are part of that organization. That's right. And Jenna Malone, who plays Owen Wilson's wife, she has the teeth that got fixed. Like she's been through the program,
right,
and has the repaired teeth.
This is where you probably were reminded of Under the Silver Lake. That idea that it's like everything. It's everything.
Like everything is connected, and it's part of this big chain. Yeah, part of this big conspiracy.
Which I wonder if noir does that to make a commentary about the government. Because the government is, in fact, that, right? It's like this big fucking thing where we learn about us destabilizing, countries and then like swooping in and taking over their government. And like, there's so much of their government being on both ends of a problem.
Yeah.
That I feel like it's always kind of, it's funny in noir because it's never the government. But it's always like this shadow entity.
It's institutions a lot.
Right.
Or organizations shadow organizations. You're right.
And
There might be something to that.
Because noir is always, it either undercuts that or it's about that or it's about because like the Big Lebowski has that implication that everything's connected. Noir always loves that idea. Chinatown, it's like, oh, it was the land the whole time. And there's always some greed element or some like mundane issue, or like villain, right? And it always is usually an institution that is seen as respectable.
Sometimes it's more about like a pebble dropping into a big,
right,
ocean.
But we generally like the idea of a PI sort of uncovering this large
blowing the lid off a big conspiracy. Yeah.
And it starts small. It's like, one person goes missing.
Or, somebody ends up dead and it just seems like, oh, it was,
Right. Which is funny because like, this is a tangent, like Sherlock Holmes doesn't necessarily do that. At least the books. Those were always like batshit. It was always like, it's a guy dressed as a bear or something like that. And
right.
Like, really?
Yeah. They're sending a snake down a rope.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just some horse shit.
No, but they still, they still use misdirects.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the idea there is like, it's a combination of things that could technically happen that someone would put together because they would assume nobody would figure this out. And then it's Holmes figuring it out. And it's some batshit weird thing that somebody's doing for the most part.
Yeah.
But it's always this idea of a lot of components to sort of create all these misdirects. Like a good mystery.
Yeah.
I guess that's why like people are attracted to this idea of like, what if a lot of stuff doesn't go anywhere? What if it's not a big grand conspiracy? But in this case, it is, right?
Yes.
Like it is. I'm just, and the end was like there's that part in the end where they're towing in the ship and they're like, well, we did it. And I'm like, but what?
That's another thing.
Was it?
Yeah. Like the endings are frequently a little anticlimactic.
Yes. Because a lot of the time it's like, well...
Yeah, like it's very just like, oh, like that's just kind of like Maltese Falcon, even like the classic ones. Or the one we just watched, what was it called again?
The Long Goodbye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The endings are kind of a little anticlimactic. They just sort of, end with like something happening off screen or just a very... procedural solution or something,
right?
If that makes
sense.
I
get it. Like that's life. There's usually a different climax. Like this follows that, which is that like the actual climax is this other thing with Josh Brolin. And the golden, like he literally, the last thing he does with the Golden Fang is give them their drugs back in a very polite manner. Basically, they call him, and the guy who's the father of the girl that he helped before was like, listen, the only reason we're not murdering you is because you helped me. Can we pick up the drugs?
Who was seduced by Martin Short.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really liked that because I always think about that in mob movies or like where those moments where you're like, just talk to each other. Like all you have to do is go like, hey, listen, this was planted by a cop on me. Here's your drugs. Just come get it. I don't need it, you know?
Like
and that's basically what happens
the bathtub
here.
Scene.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what happens here. He's just like, gets a call and they're like, hey, can we get the drugs back? And he's like, sure. And they're like, do you want like a finder's fee? And this is what I liked is that he was like, oh, you know what? Give Owen Wilson his life back so he can go back to his family. And I love that idea that this whole mess makes him look like a miracle worker for this two people who seem like decent people that he helps in the end.
And that's
like,
that's the climax, or rather that's like the resolution. That's the justice. Because
if we didn't mention, his girlfriend just shows back up.
Yeah.
And is like, oh yeah.
Like nothing was wrong. She was just like fucking around with this guy on his boat, I guess.
Yeah.
Like it was a total dead end.
Yeah. Which is weird because she seems really intense before she disappears. And so like that, and again, that's like classic noir stuff.
Yeah. Like, and so is the ending where he like doesn't really get anything.
No, and he's like, I don't want money. Just do this
I just
thing
want this.
For me.
Yeah.
Because what I liked about that specific thread is every time he is faced with a new thing with that, he is one step ahead, meaning that he checks on her. She's like, I want you to do these things. Then he meets Owen Wilson. He's like, I want you to check on these people for me. And he already has. So there's a lot of that where he's like magical to them. Like he just has exactly what Owen Wilson needs already, and then is in the exact perfect position to free him as well. So like, yeah, I liked that idea of a little bit of justice for these two people who seem decent.
Yeah. Also, I love that Owen Wilson looks like he's dressed like he fell into a vat of gadzooks.
Oh my God, you're right.
He's dressed incredibly in this movie.
Pretty shaggy. He's perfect for this.
Very shiny shirt.
Yeah. Narc jazz musician. Perfect for Owen Wilson.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at his face. He's born to play that role.
Yeah. And Benicio obviously has paid the lawyer for a drugged out dude more than once. So
yeah, he's an old hand at this.
That. Yeah. Yeah. Great casting. It's everybody firing on all cylinders for Paul Thomas Anderson. You know, like,
this was on my list for a long time, but it's been out, this is 2010. So, I'd sort of forgotten everything about this movie. And then going in to watch it for this, I deliberately didn't look anything up beforehand. So
nice.
Like each new reveal in the cast was like a punch to the face. It was like, holy
Martin
shit.
Short's the biggest one.
Yeah. When Martin Short showed up.
Yeah. Did you notice the weird Freddy versus Jason reference?
Yes. Krueger and Voorhees?
Yeah, I was like, what? All right. I guess.
What was it,
They're
law
referring
firm?
to like law firm of Krueger and Voorhees or Voorhees Krueger or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right.
I did not know what to make of that.
And that's the thing. There's so much shit like that.
Yeah. Like, that's when I really started thinking about Under the Silver Lake. I was like, oh man, are we going to go meta with this?
Right. Yeah. It never does, which it's probably
as far as I know. Like, I want to watch it again.
Definitely want to watch it again.
Because I do feel like being caught up in the mystery, I was missing some things, or I don't know. This is a movie that I definitely want to watch again.
Yeah, because it is fun. Again, scene by scene, there was only like one line that made me go, ugh. Because the dialogue is really walking a line. So it's narrated by this character who might be imaginary, according to synopsises.
That was, this was really puzzling, this character entirely.
Yeah. And it's like right on the line of pretentious. You know what I mean? Where it's like, it was like a little, like, it felt a little Southland Tales with like Timberlake's narration. There's one part where she describes someone's face ingredients, and I was like, just say expressions. Just say expressions.
No, man.
Like, that was like a
face
step too far. It's like you can just talk normal. Just say normal words. It's fine.
There's no need to do this like a Martian.
Yeah. And so like there's a lot of like magical realism. The Ouija board scene where they get a number to score from a Ouija board.
Yeah.
Actually
and
has
they call it
weed.
and it's actual directions from people saying, hey, you can score weed here.
Yeah, you could argue that the way Ouija boards work is tapping into our subconscious, so he must have read that number at some point. And maybe that's why.
Yeah, they sort of push you in that direction, I guess pun sort of intended. When they cut back over to the friend real quick and who was doing the Ouija board with them, and she says, well, you know how Ouija boards work.
Right. And in that scene, why is she there with them? Like that's where it's like, is she imaginary?
Right, yeah,
because
this is the
like,
narrator character, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of shit like that.
Yeah, there's a lot that I'm just not, I'm not sure what to do with it.
There's like a level of pretentiousness on top of it that I think is like a little film of that. And I think that's that plus the movie being very like hard to follow could push audiences away.
Yeah.
Because I would argue the humor itself is very fun. Josh Brolin sucks off a banana several times.
It's an entire scene. There's an entire scene that's just Joaquin Phoenix watching Josh Brolin grossly eat this chocolate banana.
It blows the Vince Vaughn eating a sandwich scene from Dragged Across Concrete, blows it out of the water.
It's like Jeffrey Tambor in Arrested Development eating the ice cream sandwich.
Exactly. Chocolate banana, just like Arrested Development. Yeah.
You call this a job, friend.
Yeah. It's just that. It's just him. This movie is, I think, Josh Brolin's movie. Ultimately, I think he owns this movie.
Yeah, he's so weird in it. It's so good. I was going to say this movie reminds me, or sort of the tone or style of humor, I guess, is like a Wes Anderson movie made by Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It felt like Paul Thomas Anderson sat down and went, I could make a funny thing. And it's like, can you?
Or it feels like it feels like his version of Twee, if that makes sense, because it's not Twee, but it's like
it's very random.
Yeah, and the humor is very dry is not the word, but it's very like Wes Anderson or like Napoleon Dynamite. It's like quietly funny.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. It's not. I mean, it's still pretty outright funny too, but it's just this combination. And again, it's very horny.
Oh, it's extremely horny.
And so it's just like, oh god, the part where he's fucking he's mimicking the fuck. He's doing the finger in the hole.
Oh my gosh!
To imply sex, and he keeps doing it, and then he licks the finger. He wets his finger, keeps doing it. Holy shit.
Yeah, that was good.
Again, he's amazing. Like you forget again where it's like, why doesn't he do more fucking comedy? I guess he does sometimes, but like
Men in Black 3, I haven't seen it, but
he's the best part of that. He's basically doing a phenomenal Tommy Lee Jones impression. He's still the straight man, but it's still like it's so overtly funny to watch him just be Tommy Lee Jones. It's worth watching that film just for him, I'd say.
Word.
Yeah, he rarely does comedy. When he does, it's like, man, Josh Brolin, you're so good at this.
I guess it's his face. He's got Thanos face.
He's got Thanos face.
It's the Leslie Nielsen thing.
Yeah, he has to play like a serious guy.
He looks like a guy who has never told a joke in his life.
Yes. And he can make that work for him.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, you look at him in like The Goonies. I know he was young then.
That was many years ago.
But you're like, that's like kind of a spunky young kid. Like I could see that kid being funny as an adult. And so that's what's... And everything I know about him is like he likes to party, and or at least he did at one point. Yeah. And he just generally seems like a guy with a good sense of humor.
Likes to walk through drive-thrus.
Yeah. That's a funny thing to do. That's a funny guy. Oh, man.
It was him and Kiefer.
Him and Kiefer. I want him, Kiefer.
Then pretending they had their arms out in front of them like steering wheels, just pretending like they were driving cars.
Hear me out. Him, Kiefer, and Russell Crowe, Three Stooges remake. Fuck it.
There would be no survivors.
It would be a dark, dark day.
Yeah.
On the set of the Three Stooges Reborn.
It'd be like the drive-in scene in Twister.
Yeah. No, I mean, what this movie is ultimately trying to do, and I think does do, is it's that noir idea of like the things you thought were important weren't, right?
Yeah.
But there are some little snags, like again, going back to them towing the boat, and the cult, where I'm like, there was enough of that in there where I felt like there was supposed to be more. But I guess not. Again, it wasn't actually important, right? The Golden Fang was not. They're supposed to be
not super important, I don't think, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the idea is like these institutions can't be taken down, right? Like all you can do is a little act of kindness.
Right, you carve out your own small victories.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good idea. I think it was just there's so much going on in this.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go on.
I think a lot of noir runs the risk of this, I think, where while trying to make, something that's has a lot of disparate threads and red herrings and stuff, and this big interconnected mystery that doesn't seem to be related at first. Like, it's easy to make it unsatisfying because it has to end in the way that noirs end.
Right.
So I think this one is a little unsatisfying in that way.
I think so. For me, it was the middle, meaning that I actually did like that ending. I did find that satisfying, where it's like, oh, he did one good deed, because there's sort of this.
Yeah, I think I ultimately did too. I agree. Yeah, but I'm sorry. Continue.
Oh, but we haven't talked about his character and the idea of like, you don't really know where he stands morally too much. Is he in it for himself? Obviously, there's a lot of weirdness. Like, we haven't talked about how they call him the doc, and he works out of a doctor's office.
Yeah, his office is in a doctor's office. Yeah,
there's a lot of flavoring. But I think ultimately it's a show like, yeah, this guy is trying to do good. And this is, I think, a common thread with PIs, which is why it actually works as a stoner, is that PIs like justice, but they don't like what the cops call justice.
Mm-hmm.
That idea, which is like the cops just want to beat up some black kids, they just want to do like low level fucking, they want to fine you for parking.
You're almost,
where he wants to solve real problems.
Yeah, it's like you're almost surprised when they do the right thing.
Yeah. And so like this idea of the grizzled PI ultimately does want
the scumbag justice. With the heart of gold.
Yeah. And so like him doing one good thing was satisfying. I just thought the middle really meanders. Like it really, and it's again by design, there was a lot of fun scenes, but you find yourself sort of like, I started getting like very tired in the middle.
Well, yeah, I didn't know where to focus. Like I felt like we were getting spun around, for the purposes of the mystery. But like,
yeah,
I agree that the ending is satisfying in that he gets to do this good deed for these good people. But like that doesn't become the clear path for a long time. Like that doesn't come into focus for a while. So there's a long time there in the middle where it just feels like spun about, and I don't know which direction I'm supposed to be following. Like what's important and what isn't.
there's a lot of like, what are these people to you moments?
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I don't know what's important to the characters that I like or what characters I necessarily need to like or root for. And like stuff like remember the wife in the middle where he goes to the wife's house and all the cops are there and she's fucking that guy, and then the assistant lady like tries to fuck him, and the ties, and it's like stuff like that where I'm like, did that need to be in there? I don't know. It felt like it was a lot of spinning wheels, and you're right, where ultimately there's so much stuff in like introduced that you don't have an emotional thread that you can hang on to. And I think that's why a lot of audience members might have left, where there was a point probably where the audience members realized they didn't care about anybody, you know? Like that's ultimately why you leave a movie.
You're not
right?
sure why you're following a certain thing.
Yeah. Where you start going like, why am I watching this?
Yeah.
I could be doing something else.
I think there was something about the neckties, though. Isn't that how he recognizes somebody?
Probably, yeah.
Because he makes neckties of all of his mistresses.
Yeah, but it's hard to tell ultimately because it's like, I don't know. There's just so many things. I don't know. But you're right. That probably did lead to something. Also, who is the guy that like hangs out with him?
Oh, like his driver? Assistant?
Yeah, who I feel like wasn't there in the first half, but I might be wrong.
He just sort of, he appears and disappears.
Right. It's shit like that where you're like, am I supposed to know who this guy is or care about him?
It's like Hobbs.
Yeah, there's
like,
a lot
that's another guy. It's like, is he real?
Yeah. There's a lot of that feeling of like you go to a friend's party and they don't introduce you to anyone. And you're just like, all right, fuck me, I guess I'll just figure this out, you know? Which isn't a bad idea, but it puts audiences off to do that, you know? Because audiences, including myself sometimes, likes having things spoon-fed a little bit, you know? Where it's like, we're telling a story. Tell me who these people are.
Yeah. After a point, especially in a 2.5 hour movie, it's like, I don't want to have to guess what the story is anymore. Like I would like to know at this point.
Right. I don't want to feel lost. Like,
yeah.
And there was stuff like the guy who he wakes up next to who's dead. I don't even think they established. Do they establish that's the guy, the Nazi that he was looking for?
Not right away.
It's things like that where you're just like, fuck, what is that?
I thought it was a dream at first.
Yeah, and like I'm bad at faces and stuff, so I had lots of moments where I'm like, have I met this guy yet? And like the partner stuff where it's like that was a cool idea, but it felt like, again, like telling a story.
Comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, where they're like, oh, by the way, his partner, this happened and he was killed and it was this guy.
Yeah,
now he's getting revenge, and you're like, I don't care.
Yeah, it's literally a single line, like after it's already happened, I think.
Yeah, and it's like I don't care. I don't care. You didn't make me care about it because you spent no time introducing it and resolving it. So it's like it comes and goes. And again, I think that's sort of the point.
Yeah, I think so. I think it just needed to be leaner. That's how like Big Lebowski does it. Yeah,
I think it needed less of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because going back, I liked every scene.
Yeah.
It's just the sum of its parts. I'm like, I like most of this movie. I didn't need so much of it.
Yeah, coming away from it, like, I think the movie's just okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not my favorite of his. I like the intent behind it and the art behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And the performances and the directing. Again, I like it's such quality filmmaking and acting and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know, ultimately not for me, I guess.
I liked being in this world.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the way that it was crafted.
And so I guess there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, not. I think it's a little like we said. There's a little too much in it, and it's too long. I think.
Yeah.
Too spread. I get too much stuff. We already said.
Right. Right. It's just like, I don't know. if someone was like, here's a painting of a clown masturbating, it's really well painted. And I'd be like, it is. I'm not going to hang it on my wall, though. Not for me.
You wouldn't?
I might. That's a bad example. That's a really bad example.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all I have to say about this movie.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, darn. Fucking damn it.
Well, shucks.
Thank you,
Dave.
Thank you, Ombre. Shucks. Ombre,
fucking
thank you so much.
Shucks.
Fucking shucks. Ombre, this was again, I've been meaning to watch this, so I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Got to check this one off the old list.
Yeah. This was through our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed, GAMEFULLY, unemployed. We, what do we do? God damn, we have exclusive podcasts for just $5 a month. You can get access to Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We also have a podcast we do with the Small Beans, fucking Spiel Boys, Star Trek Next Futurama. For a little bit more, you can watch movies with us every Friday night. Most Friday nights, at least. We hang out. We have a few laughs.
Some cries. Some cries are had. Some tears are shared.
Yep. Custom podcasts. We got it all. Movies, as they say.
We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store, where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of stuff. So check that out if you want.
If you want. God, I've never had a chocolate covered banana. Can you just get those?
I don't know. I've never had one either.
We need to change this. We need to suck off some bananas.
Yeah, man. I think we're owed it. We owe it to ourselves, really.
Yeah. And to the bananas.
Just wrap my moist throat around a banana.
Throat it.
Yeah, throat that banana like one of the fucking worms from Dune.
Mm-hmm, like you're a hungry Josh Brolin.
Yeah, that's right.
He was in Dune.
He is in Dune.
Jesus.
See, like a noir, all the connections are becoming clear now.
Hey, listen, our music is produced by Chris Corlew. You can find him on twitter.com as the Corlew, or go to shipwreckedsailor.bandcamp.com. Our channel artwork is produced by Michael Vincent Bramley. For more of his work, go to mvbramley.art. Our episode artwork is by Justin Brown, available on Twitter as Justin T. Brown or at Artness by JustinBrown.com. And finally, additional artwork is by Starlene Hodge. You can find her work at StarleneArts.com or on Twitter as StarleneX. Cool. Goodbye.